for Black America, it's just another year. You knew the disrespect by your elected puppeteers, but let me show you how to persevere.
I think you're too
YouTube, what's good?
I need to fall my ways.
Facebook, we live, baby.
How can one thing be so much to you and so
See, you gotta be smooth in the pocket with the shoulders, you feel me?
you say it too much, baby. You know it's not your place. You're sniffing too much, baby.
Oh yeah, you like really. I was listening to this with my dad when I was in Clarksville. Shout out Clarksville. If you know who I'm listening to, is Anderson Paak. Reaching too much off his Ventura album. Yeah. It's got like a nice little
You're doing way too much. Settle down, settle down.
Hey, y'all about to catch me in a real like vibe though. Like this ain't for the show, y'all. This is me and my boss. Hey,
Come on, Pop Daddy. Hey,
whoa.
that's how you hear that.
Hey, shoot, I was be at this little party for real. I wanna let the whole song play. Don't play with me. I like some Anderson Paak, man. Anderson Paak get down.
You looking real buff today, Mr. DeCosta.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Brother been doing good for me, you know?
Looking real.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Look, it's your boy Jay DeCosta.
It is your girl, Katniss.
And together we are
The
the Nitty Gritty. Look, thank you guys for being on the show today. It's good to be back in the DMV. Shout out Clarksville. I was down there for a little while. I was dropping my daughter Lalah back off. Had a good time. They've actually done pretty good with downtown though. I went to Strawberry Alley restaurant. I actually went there a few times. They had
Why
some
do they
good food.
call it Strawberry Alley? Was there like a lot of strawberry type food?
No, they just call it Strawberry Alley. It's been Strawberry Alley
Like,
since.
oh, they are, the originators of like strawberry pancakes or something. But no, that's not.
No. The road is like Strawberry Alley, and the restaurant is called Strawberry Alley. So, yeah, but it was good. It was good. Yeah, had a good time. We got a few things to cover. Got some current news to get down with. Also, we're gonna talk about this economy right now. So many different things going on, especially with the working class citizen, right? And some of the decisions being made on high. I think we should break that down because even I have a difference of opinion on various things, but then they have various implications depending where you are in society, right? So I think it's worth the conversation. And like, what does that do? What does that mean for us and our culture, right? So definitely want to talk about that. And then also we'll change gears and we want to talk about the importance of being introspective, right? Looking within. So maybe that might change how you view when looking out. So yeah, we'll talk about that, how it affects friendships, how it can affect business, or even how it can affect an intimate relationship, right? So we'll talk about that. So we got a lot of ground to cover. Let's get to it. We'll start off with some current news. So the NBA is back. Did you watch any games?
I didn't, but I did watch the highlights from Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, okay.
I did watch
Good to
the
see
highlights.
Stephen A. Smith. If you're joining us right now, hey, shout your city out so we give you a holler.
I plan to tune in when they start doing the playoffs. I definitely plan to tune in. I'm a basketball fan, and to me, there's nothing like the NBA playoffs. However, I don't know if it's going to be the same vibe as previous seasons, just considering the whole like box and less people are able to attend. And I do want to say one thing: if LeBron James get a ring, for all you haters, I don't want to hear nothing.
Nah, it's gonna be an official ring. It's going down in the books.
You already know they're gonna come.
Yeah, they got
gonna
their
say,
excuse lined up.
LeBron, let the man have it, please.
Yeah. Also, I thought it was interesting. So I was watching the game. Shout out to Nadar. Actually, shout out to Nadar, Khalif, Rashida. Actually, while I was in town, I know like my brothers and a few people. They had a chance to go check out TheNitty. That's their mother's memorial service. Unfortunately, she passed away last Sunday. So there was a lot of people in town. It was kind of it was bittersweet because I got to see a lot of people that I normally wouldn't have saw when I came in town. But they were there, so that was nice to kind of see them again. So RIP to Natalie and prayers to Abdullah and Kate families. I know a lot of you guys are affected by that right now. I just want to let you know that we are actively praying for you. But with that, we was all just kind of kicking it at the Dar's house, right? And we was watching the Lakers game, and it was just weird watching it because the players are spaced out, right? But then when you look around the arena, they have like this. It's like this long, I guess, like video or like banner, and you can see people watching from the banner. It's almost like you're watching 2K live. It's crazy, like with better graphics. Like you almost had to wonder, like, is this LeBron James really playing, or is this like a heightened version of NBA 2K? Yeah, so the banner going around the arena, because it was down. Normally you see these like further up in the arena. This was down, and you can see faces watching. You had to probably have actually watched the game to really get an understanding of what I'm trying to say, or have played 2K, but I doubt you play video games, especially NBA 2K. So, but for those who watched it, let me know your thoughts. I feel like I was watching NBA 2K. It was weird. It was weird looking at the background. And but I mean, they out there hooping, so I don't think it's changed the gameplay at all. So this is gonna be fun. Also, and I'll let you elaborate on this one. Beyonce is King. That dropped Friday, right?
Yeah.
I did watch that today with you. You had already watched it, but I thought it was okay. What's your thoughts?
It was very artistic. I was like, wow, she put a lot of detail into this. It was good. I don't think it has the... I guess the best way for me to give my opinion is if I compare it to like that of Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller, I can watch Michael Jackson's Thriller over and over and over again. It doesn't get old because it's like a classic movie to me almost. Beyonce's Black is King was great, artistic. She did it for the culture. I love all the detail. But I feel like once you've watched it once, that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I was disappointed in any way for the most part, I think it was because I was expecting new music.
She had like maybe a couple new songs.
Yeah, but I was expecting like a real new project, like a new project within the same lane of like Afrobeats and all that.
Very similar project as the other one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, I think it was cool that with this, she was able to highlight those Afrobeats artists that maybe we can't put the name and face together. So then you were kind of like, you could go back and look and say like, oh, okay, Martin Cole, whatever. But I mean, it was okay, I guess. I know the Beehive is going nuts over it. I mean, y'all can at me in the comments. I don't care, but I mean, it was okay. And then I don't understand why people say it was demonic. So I seen like Christians calling it demonic, and I mean like it was spiritualism from Africa, but I wouldn't call that demonic. You get what I'm saying?
I think that most of us are so used to Christianity that our minds cannot conceptualize
anything positive.
There we go. From
outside
any
of
other religion.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, even as a Christian, we don't necessarily practice the Muslim belief, but if a brother goes to jail and finds Allah, we should celebrate his transformation.
Yeah, it's like, how can we, and that might be a conversation for another day, but I will say, how can we say what salvation is? I understand that we have a practice within our own base of faith. But if I see somebody find something and they honestly change, right? There's this, hey Elisa, what's going on, girl? Good to have you on. Shout out Merlin in the building.
Hey, Elisa.
But I feel like if somebody finds whatever kind of faith and they change, I mean, to me it's like that person's saved.
Yeah.
Because I know some people that claim they have the ultimate truth, right? And I've seen some horrors within those people. So it's kind of like, how can you say one faith is better than the other when within all faiths we found people who are living short of the value system of that faith? And we see some living it to the best of its ability and potential, yet and still the bottom line is those who are, I think, living faith to the best of their potential, no matter what that faith is, we see that they have better lives than other people. Research also shows that people who have faith, not saying which particular one, but people who have faith tend to live longer and more fulfilled lives. So I'm just saying, like, they might just be a baseline in faith, but that's another conversation because I don't want to lose some. It's going to go over their head, and they're going to be like, Juan's a devil worshiper, so whatever. That's a whole other conversation. Also in current news, I'm getting more political now. Herman Cain passed away due to COVID-19. Now, I've seen a lot of memes out there. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't celebrate anybody's death. I just don't think just for me personally, I'm not going to celebrate somebody's passing away. You know, like even if Trump was to die tomorrow, will you see me like hanging the American flags over here halfway? No. Would I be like, oh my God, I need to call off from work? Or would I be like, you know, reaching out to the family probably? No. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not going to be like, hallelujah, he's dead. You know, I just don't roll like that. And Herman Cain, while he was in opposition a lot of times to, I think, the common thread or feel of most African Americans, I'm not going to rejoice over his death. I mean, his ignorance killed him. I think that's enough as it is, right? He had said about a month ago when they went to the first rally for Trump, we're not going to wear masks because he didn't believe in coronavirus. He felt like it was something coming from the liberals and the left side, that it was a hoax. And then Herman Cain ended up coming down about 2 weeks ago with COVID-19, and COVID-19 took him out, right? I think that's enough karma in itself. I don't have to rejoice on it. I mean, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think, I have two questions. The first question is, I only know one close family member that has had COVID-19. Other than that close family member, I really haven't heard of many people having it in my immediate circle. You?
So we know that more than likely my grandfather passed away from it. Now I will be honest, the doctors didn't diagnose him with that. But when you look at the symptoms that people were having, it seemed as if his pre-existing conditions were worsened by some new influence of something else. They were saying there was a bacterial infection, but it seemed like the symptoms were closely related to COVID. I'm no doctor, so I can't say. I've known other people who have caught COVID-19 and they were down seriously. I know another lady right now who's recovering. I won't shout her name out because I don't know if she wanted her business out like that. She did post it to Facebook, but nonetheless, I know she came down with COVID and she had some severe reactions, and she really had like to watch her water intake and food, and I mean, and she's still recovering even though she's past like the worst of it. So
I guess the second question is, and bear with me guys, do you think it's possible, I know they said that some people can be asymptomatic, for the people who are asymptomatic, do you think it's possible that there could be this stark difference in that when you get COVID, you have pre-existing conditions? Yeah. Obviously you worsen, you might die, your health becomes a huge factor. Do you think it's possible for someone to have a really high immune system to which they are asymptomatic and really nothing happens? I mean,
it's possible. I mean, we've heard so many different thought processes. Just like we had a doctor come out recently that was saying like, you know, there's a cure for it. But then there's like a bunch of other doctors all last week debating saying that's not a cure. Why it may work in younger patients, they don't recommend it for older patients. It may leave them worse off.
Yeah, I heard that.
So it's kind of like nobody just really knows. And I know a lot of arguing saying we need a vaccine. I know a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, and maybe they have a point. It is kind of weird when you want to test something on one group of people, but then at the same time, it's kind of like you're almost confused. There's so much coming at you, because then I hear a lot of black people saying, no, don't test it on us, or don't give it to us first, but then it's kind of like, if we're the community be getting hit the worst, and if the rationale is, from some of us like, well, give it to black people first because they're suffering more, but then it's kind of like, I don't know if I want to be first when it comes to medicine. You know what I'm saying? That's never really worked out well for us.
Not historically, no.
So in America, so it's kind of like, you know what? This is the one time we don't mind being last. I mean, we've been last for everything else anyway.
They saying when you fly that you should wear goggles. I mean, where does one? Am I supposed to just get swimming goggles and just wear them?
I wish I knew that beforehand. I just took a flight, but I mean, I had my mask on the whole time, and the flight was borderline empty. I mean, I flew Southwest, and everybody was A group. So for all my Southwest flies, you know what that means.
I'm wondering if it's because the plane is like such a tight space and germs can
maybe the air. I mean, I would imagine if everybody had the mask on, it should work, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not going to try to pretend to be one. So people out there, just be safe, okay? Be safe. Then also in current news, Donald Trump, speaking of voting, Donald Trump was shut down by a lot of GOP senators because he was floating this idea of trying to delay the vote. And this is one of the few times that I've seen like, what's the guy from Kentucky, the senator I can't stand. I can't think of his name right now. But even he was saying, and a bunch of other GOP senators were like, look, never in the history have we delayed the vote. He had mentioned examples such as World War II, the Civil War, Iraq, the Depression, and all those situations, we never delayed the vote. And the only person that could delay the vote is Congress. Could pass up the law to try to delay the vote. But, I mean, we're not going to delay the vote because of Corona. We can send it by mail, and it's kind of like, you can see Trump already developing his excuse. Now, he said before the last election that it's going to be rigged, but then he won, right?
But you know he's already has his tactics in mail being received, right? Because the U.S. Postal Service has a strict policy where they don't leave behind mail. So if they see mail that they can take, they go ahead and take it. Trump has made it so now there are these time restrictions. Well, you know, if you get the mail at 3 o'clock, don't worry about the 3:15 mail coming. Just go ahead. And so now the U.S. Postal Service did come out with like an article like, well, what does this mean for mailing ballots? Does this mean things are going to be late?
Well, he's trying to create an issue with the mailing of the ballots. I mean, it's so obvious. People see through his bullcrap, and you have so many Republicans speaking out against him, from John Kasich to our very own Larry Hogan to you got not Mitch McConnell, but you have Mitch McConnell disagreeing with him. That's what I was referring to earlier from Kentucky. He was like, no, we're not going to delay the vote. Mitt Romney obviously has spoken out against Trump. You have Jeb Bush has spoken out against Trump. I think at this point, they're just tired of him. And I think they'll rather deal with a Biden who is basically, you know, middle road enough. He could be considered a, you know, as a liberal Republican as far as they care. I think they would rather have that.
They were saying don't mail your ballot in. I was hearing drive it to the nearest poll center and
I mean, do whatever you got to do to get your vote
hand it in because the mail may not be reliable. And that's what I'm saying about the U.S.
I mean, I know our votes went in for Maryland when we voted locally. I know all of our stuff went in, and we mailed everything by ballot, by mail, and it worked for us.
Or maybe don't wait till the last minute. Maybe
I would say maybe don't wait till the last minute. I think you guys should get your stuff in early. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it, but I will hope that everybody will participate, right? And then, you know, hope for the best outcomes. But I mean, more important than just the federal elections, don't forget we have local elections that are going on at the same time. You're not just voting for president on that ballot. There are so many other things to vote for. There's huge elections going on in Tennessee right now. We got big elections going on in Kentucky right now. So please vote, because you may not feel like your vote matters in the general election for president. It's definitely going to matter when you're trying to pick your next senator or your governor or the next mayor or commissioner in your city. So please vote, because your voice does matter. So you know what? Let's get down to the nitty-gritty, folks. We've delayed enough. It's like we're 18 minutes in. Let's go. So let's talk about the economy, right? Since we're already talking politics and everything. I'm really concerned about our economy. We've seen that the national GDP has gone down about 8% or 8 points. That's scary. And that's what you're talking about, the average wage or earning potential of the average American. I know a lot of this is due to the closing of various industries. I think we just seen that, I think it was Neiman Marcus or one of those that just filed for bankruptcy.
The clothing store? Neiman Marcus?
Yeah, I think it's Neiman Marcus. I could be wrong. It's one of them. It's one of those high-end stores. They just filed for bankruptcy recently. So that's kind of scary. We know that JCPenney has.
Oh, yeah, JCPenney has. You know, I want to bring it back to what we talked about very early on when coronavirus first hit, because I think so often we put so much pressure on the poor to have their ish together. And we're seeing that in America,
big companies.
In America, whether you are poor or wealthy, many people are living paycheck to paycheck because of the infrastructure of our society. We consume. Everything is highly at a high cost. Everything is highly inflated. And I feel like because of that, people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Definitely.
So how do we expect people who are poor to save up 6 months? What do they usually say? 6 months
of an income,
of an emergency fund.
Yep.
How do you expect them to have that when the corporations don't even have that?
Exactly. And then, you know, when you start arguing like your minimum wage, it's like, okay, over the last 20 years, the average American worker has only seen a pay raise of about 7%. Meanwhile, American CEOs has seen almost a 700% increase in the last 20 years. And a lot of that being that the structure of how they get paid is dependent on how well they do in the various quarters throughout the year, right? And if their various stockholders, right, the investors, if they make so much money, then there's incentives for that CEO. They get money upwards of like $50 million, $100 million for a job well done because they've had strong quarters throughout the year. And when this happens, that when these guys are making these decisions, they're only looking at the bottom line because it greatly affects how they get paid. And then if you think about how inflation has worked for America, it's kind of a shame because so many of our products are made abroad, right? Those products haven't inflated really much in value. They're still making those $220 Jordans for about maybe $5 or less a pair. Same for the Yeezys, the Deserets, the up-tempos, anything y'all Bama's is rocking right now. Alexander McQueen, whatever, they're making it somewhere else right now for a very low cost. The markup on high fashion and fashion in general is normally somewhere around the 600% upwards to the 1200% markup, right? So the cost of living is going up, but the raw materials needed to make the things that we need everyday life, they're actually not going up in price. So what's the reason for the inflation? Just corporate greed, right? And not everyone is participating in the earning mechanisms associated around that. So it's kind of like either one or two things need to happen. We need to somehow write better legislation to keep these companies from just shooting up prices for the sake of it because they can. Same thing like for housing and renting. And at the same time, and if things are going to keep on going up, we need to find a better way to raise minimum wage. There's a reason why they ask for $15 minimum wage. Think about it. You can live in Clarksville, Tennessee, and you can still get a job only making $7 an hour. And then a lot of the factories in the Tennessee area, Kentucky, Alabama, Georgia, what a lot of them do is they bring you on with a temp agency. You do that for like 6 months, and if you do well, instead of making $9 an hour, they finally bring you on to the actual factory. And when you do come onto the factory, they have a cap on how much you can make per hour. Normally anywhere between $18 to $25 an hour. But here's the catch. They don't bring you into the factory making the $18 to $25 an hour. You know what they do? They bring you into the factory only making maybe $11 an hour or $13 an hour. And after every so many years or so many months, you finally, maybe after 2 years, get caught up to the full pay scale of what you're making. So that also keeps the companies from having to spend as much money. It's not honest business. And then when we come to a situation like COVID that no one saw coming, although there's multiple articles stating it in 2016 and 2017, that's a whole other conversation. But then COVID happens, and then it's like we're not prepared as an economy or even as American industries to support our workers. Mm-hmm. And then there's other conversations like getting rid of the $600 federal unemployment. So it's like, yeah, I get it. You don't want people to make too much money at home. But then at some point, it's like people still need to survive, right? It's a tough spot. Let's read some comments. Herman said, too many CEOs getting raises and their workers not even getting a living wage. No one should be making more money on unemployment than their job.
That's the crazy part to me. It's mind blowing. So,
because and to be fair, right? I've heard some people, and I understand that. Some people are like, yeah, man, you shouldn't be at home making more money sitting on your behind than when you're working. And I'm like, and so, because if you look at it from one perspective, it's like, yeah, like, that's somebody being lazy and taking advantage of the system, right? Or you can look at it from a different way and say, well, why is it that the job paid so little that an extra $600 has you doing better than when you were at work? You get what I'm saying? Like, there's two sides to every coin.
That's how I look at it. And even the whole lazy comment, I don't think they're being lazy. I think, okay, when you know better, you do better, right? So someone like me who's been exposed to people who make lots of money, if I got an extra $600 a month, more than likely I'm going to invest it in something or I'm going to save it because I've been exposed to that kind of mindset to obviously grow more wealth. But someone who lives in poverty, who may not have been exposed to good money making practices or how to make more wealth, they're probably not going to think to invest it or save it. They're probably going to blow it on whatever, because how can you expect poor people, not all, but how can you expect a mindset from somebody or a group of people who haven't necessarily been exposed to it? It's the equivalent of when you see these ball players, NFL players, being taken from the hood and they get these $1 million contracts, and then after the NFL they're saying that they're bankrupt because no one ever sat them down and talked about finance. Like, it's a real thing.
Yeah, and then so it's like, there's true. There's a responsibility to us as individuals to take better care of our money. But then we know that systematically things out of our control are out of whack when $600 for the average American will have them living better just sitting at home collecting federal unemployment along with the state unemployment, right? You're talking about on average, if I remember the number correctly, if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. I want to say that's like on average like 25, some people can make like almost $2,200 a month from at home. But that should never technically be more than what you're making from a full-time job employed as an adult.
But it is.
You know what I'm saying? And it is.
And most of the people who are benefiting from it are black and brown people, and I'm not mad about it. I'm actually happy that for once in their life, they've got money maybe to give a home-cooked meal to their family. You don't know what it's doing for them.
Yeah.
It could be really helping them in a lot of ways, so I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, but it scares me though, because we all know when you become dependent on the system, right? So this is what this is what Martin Luther King talked about that they don't normally highlight. When Martin Luther King talked about desegregation, it was so that a brilliant mathematician at NASA didn't have to run across campus to go use a bathroom, right? It's so that if there are schools nearby close to me, I should be able to use that school, and just because it's predominantly white, you don't keep me from going into this school, right? But it wasn't so that we would prefer other communities to our own and then forsake everything we tried to build, right? Because when you do that, it's like you don't own anything. And one thing about, unfortunately, specifically African American people in this country, we have very little ownership or wealth gain. And a lot of it has been systematic, but then we've been taught in a lot of ways, that's part of the systematic issue, to value others over ourselves. So when we get to a position where we no longer hold the keys to any aspect of power or economic advantage, you then become codependent on someone else. And so the scary thing about black and brown people benefiting the most from a $600 federal unemployment, and also you still have a lot of white people in the South, Middle America, they're in the same boat. The issue that happens is now you have to look for someone else to give to you, versus when you can create your own dollar, or if you kind of control some of your earning power, or if there's at least a little more confidence in its staying power, then you could go out and do more things, you can be more confident. But just sitting there waiting for a stimulus check to come in to figure out how you're going to pay rent, that's a scary place to be. I don't want to be there personally. You know? So we have to start investing and looking at ways, well, how do we try to somewhat better secure job markets, right? Or make wages more livable in America, period. Let's read some comments. Elisa Seth said, unemployment is a lot less than what you make from a job anyways. So Elisa, in the DMV that might be true. In Cali and New York that might be true. But in places like Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, certain parts of Texas, it's not true, kind of. There are some people are actually making more in unemployment right now with that $600 federal assistance added to it. That's scary.
If you are a waiter or waitress,
yeah.
Because they're not required to get minimum wage.
Exactly. So you got to think, you're only making $2 or $3 an hour, right, as a waiter or waitress.
From tips.
No, well, your base pay is $2 or $3 an hour.
Exactly.
Then on top of that, you're relying on tips. But if restaurants are closed, how do you get that? Also, think about management opportunities in industries that are suffering right now. Look at the movies. If you were a general manager at a movie theater, you probably made decent money, right? But the theaters are closed. And how long can a business honestly support people when their businesses can't be supported? People are not coming through the doors of theaters right now. They're claiming that they may reopen in some areas around August 28th, but we see some states are rolling back. Tennessee just issued a face mask order over the last 2 weeks.
Well, you know what I heard that they were going to do in certain states? They said, well, if we can't do theaters, let's bring back drive-through. Because at least with drive-through, they were saying the benefit of drive-through is that they would not have to pay for a physical building. They wouldn't have to pay for air. They wouldn't have to pay for heat. People would come with their own cars. All they would have to do is blast it on a big screen. So I said, now that's interesting.
I mean,
that they're going backwards to drive-through theater versus the indoor one, because they feel like that's more protection of social distancing and they can get more bang for their buck. Meaning, if I'm a movie theater, I may not charge you $20 to be inside the theater, but I may charge you $15. And I'm not paying for air, I'm not paying for a lease, I'm not paying for heat, and I'm still selling you concessions.
Yeah, and because I know I read the AMC website the other day, and I think what they were saying is some of the theaters will only be at 30% capacity, especially the ones that serve food and drinks.
Probably
like
gonna
that.
have it to where they only sell certain seats to keep it.
Yeah, then also like in the larger auditoriums, they're saying like every other seat needs to be empty, and so you're looking at a situation where they may sell up to maybe 50% of the capacity. But the movie industry and the movie theater industry, because they're only selling a portion of the concessions available, certain things they won't even be selling anymore because they just want to limit mass production foods that can be touched by people, right? And exposure. So you're not even selling food at the same rate that you were. So the industry is still going to take a dive.
Yeah, because the movie theaters don't make money off of the movie tickets. They make money off of the concessions, correct?
Exactly. So with people having limited concessions to purchase, both sides of the industry are going to be hurting. So it's interesting how that goes forward. Herman made a comment. He was saying that he agrees with the perspective I had on it. He said workers should at least get a living wage.
Wait, I have a question. What are the other countries? Are other countries suffering economically the same way the U.S. is?
I believe other countries are, but then I think, like for instance, Sweden, they were saying that they don't care about face masks. They're just gonna let people rock however they want to. They're saying that Italy is doing. Last time I read, Italy was doing better, but Italy went super strict with their rules.
They had to.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
They have an older population.
It kind of makes you wonder, like, is the U.S. only suffering the way we are because of how lax we were, state from state, right? The fact that it became a politicized agenda because there were some people from a political stance, i.e. Herman Cain, who has passed away, who didn't do it because he made it a political thing and I'm not going to wear a mask because I'm protesting now about it, versus really caring about the health, possibilities by doing a thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's weird, and I'm pretty sure other people are suffering from it. I honestly haven't really even researched other countries, and I probably should have.
We talk a lot about politics on the show, but I do have a question for the viewers who are watching and for you, Juan. When we think about the United States of America, do we like the fact that there is governance and jurisdiction control from state to state, or do we think there should be some kind of newly created law where a federal mandate can then supersede all of that?
No, that's the way it is now with the U.S. Supreme Court and in our federal systems. So, and I'll talk more about this so that way you guys will actually want to watch it in the upcoming soapbox. But I talk about the difference between confederation and federation. The main topic is really about the Confederate flag. But it's important to understand the difference between a confederation and a federation. And the basic difference, without going into that soapbox, is a confederation is where an allied group of people or entities come together and they work together towards like some general purposes, but they're still governed individually, right? And a lot of people think, well, that's what the United States is. That's not true, because while each state has certain powers that go to the governor, there's still a federal mandate that can supersede things if need be, right? So that's why we're a federation. That's why there is a federal government in place. And I'll get more into the weeds in the soapbox that's already out. It'll be out soon, but
even with that, let's take anybody who's ever seen Just Mercy, for instance. It has to get to the federal government, though. Like, it has to be, the federal government has to have an interest in picking up a case or a law. Like, I guess what I'm saying is there is the possibility that there could be not enough equity across all states. So let's take education, for instance. We know that Mississippi is not a great place for education, but let's say a state like Connecticut might be considered a good place for education. I'm thinking. The point I'm trying to make is that for the federal government, I don't think they have an interest to say, let's figure out a way to make Mississippi align to that of Connecticut or be closer or improve. You get what I'm saying? Like, so there's stark differences in among the states, and it's like, yikes. So
that's why it's important to understand how the government works, right? Federally, there is so much money that actually goes out to each state for funding, right?
Yeah.
And the states submit their budgets, and that's how they decide what goes out. Now, what happens is, and this is why voting is important, right? Because when we're looking at federal elections, right? When you're looking at the nation as a whole, you have to understand, like, okay, when I send this person to Congress, when I send this person to the Senate, and when I elect this person to the highest office in the nation as president, I want to know, how does he feel about spending my money from an international perspective? How does this person feel about spending my money as far as how he'll award money for education? How would this person help federal mandates to protect businesses, right? Then at the local level, you need to care about who you're sending to the state house, because you need to make sure that when they're electing how they're going to spend said budget and spread that money across the state, you want to make sure it's done evenly. One of the biggest issues we have in Maryland is that there was a disproportionate amount of money sent to places like Baltimore County versus Montgomery County or Howard County because of the amount of power and money coming out of those counties. So they would get a certain amount of money because we know they, in a lot of ways, control who's going to get to Annapolis, right?
Oh, Baltimore County?
No, I'm talking about Maryland as a whole.
Right.
So Baltimore County gets overlooked. It's like, oh, those are poor folks, they're broke.
Oh, okay.
So it's like we overlook them. They even discussed this in The Wire, right?
Right.
But then there's always a lot of focus on Montgomery County. There's always a lot of focus on Howard and those places because that's big money coming in. And we know those donations shape who's going to be the next governor. And then sometimes they have to placate that. And a lot of times we'll see a split between money governed towards PG County versus and money given to Baltimore County. And then race comes into place because those are like the two blackest counties, arguably, or maybe factually, I would probably say, in Maryland. And the same thing we see happens across the United States.
I see what you're saying.
All right.
And one thing I do want to say, and then we can move on, but what I find interesting when it comes to politics is that you have families that can twist and turn their agenda to make a make a governor do something that they look at Ozark. If I pay you $1 million, you're gonna do what I tell you to do because you want the $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And that's scary.
And people take bribes. So let's read some comments because we have some good comments here. Mamie's a grand shout out, mama. Elisa said only because of federal assistance. Facts. Elisa said we buy our candy and drinks from the dollar store anyways. Talking about the movies. That's funny. That's right. We bring in that purse full of stuff. And I guess we're going to really keep on
Black
that.
folks do that. And black folks back in the 90s used to love to get KFC along with their candy.
And Melissa, thank you for providing this insight. She said other countries are economically suffering, but they are providing monthly stipends. And I remember that you had Italy, you had, I believe it was Greece. I've heard of like Germany and England doing way more in efforts. Even Canada.
But Canada wants it back. They
Well,
want it back
I mean,
too. They basically say, we'll give you the advance now, but just know that you're going to have to pay us back.
So that's the scary thing when you start talking about being codependent
On the federal government.
Yeah, right. You know, because then it's kind of like, well, they might want their money back. We already know here in America they're going to hit people hard on taxes,
So
trying to get some of that money back. Yeah, you might not get the same income tax return in February that you experienced this past February. I'm just saying.
Because we're so focused on greed. Like, I don't know why money in the US of A is always more important than anything.
Because we're capitalist. And, you know, so that we can get into introspection, I got one more question for people. And this is a big one, and we haven't really touched it yet. And Alisa, I would love to hear your thoughts on this because you are a realtor. But the federal eviction ban or coverage on federal evictions or the federal ban on evictions is now over. Congress, the Senate haven't reached an agreement to extend the ban on evictions. So that means now, if depending on whoever you're leasing from, depending on maybe your state and what they're doing to further those protections, if you haven't been able to pay your rent from February till now, that means you're roughly about 6 months, 5 months behind. You are in danger of being evicted if the income hasn't been there to sustain your family. Mm-hmm. And we know there's been a lot of people when it comes to their gas bills and electric bills, because there haven't been any fees and they have refused to disconnect service. Mm-hmm. If you haven't paid, we have reached time up on that, right? So if you was one of those folks that did have a little bit of money, but you refused to pay it and maybe you didn't spend it correctly, maybe it just wasn't there for you to spend correctly, it's like eating was more important than maybe paying it. Now I think we're about to see a resurgence. I mean, they've been protesting in like Portland like the whole time. Like they never stopped out there. I mean, but they've been known to be very vocal and adamant about the things they want anyways, right?
In Portland?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they've been like tear gas. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff that popped off last week.
Do you think it was stupid for people to pay their rent then?
I think
like if you knew you was a little bit rough, maybe don't pay the rent, and then the band is up this. It was like, okay, well I got a little bit stacked away.
I mean, I don't know how you want to play that. I don't think I would have done it like that. I think I would have just paid my rent personally. But then we were fortunate enough to be in a situation where we're paying our rent, right?
Right,
we're working.
But then what happens to the people who were paying rent and then now they get fired and they ain't got nothing stacked away?
So it's a rough situation all over. And then that's when you can't be so hard on the person, because if the system is already stacked against you, where we inflate prices, we protect corporations over individuals, right? Then we get into a situation where it's like, okay, now we're about to be really messed up. I think things are about to really get bad if we don't make some serious decisions and fast. We may see things get truly out of hand in this country.
Because I don't understand why we're paying for parking. When you think about it, what money are they putting out that they're not getting back for parking lot? They don't have to pay for gas. Or
you already built the structure.
Yeah,
right? So then it's kind of like, why are you paying for parking to live in an apartment complex?
But most people are teleworkers who live here.
Yeah, so it is interesting. And there's certain things like loopholes that companies take advantage of. And now it's like these things are coming to a head where we may be facing truly a serious depression. And not just in this country, but worldwide. And I think for a while people thought we were just okay. But they didn't realize that $600 federal money was a Band-Aid. They weren't going to keep on doing that. Companies saying, oh, don't worry about paying your rent, don't worry about paying your gas bill, oh, we won't charge a late fee. That was a Band-Aid. That wasn't going to last long term. Now people are saying, no, we need our money because I need to be able to afford to pay my employees what I'm giving them as far as benefits. You get what I'm saying? Like the revenue streams got to come from somewhere. So I just think this is scary, and I'm praying for anybody out there who may feel food insecure, or you may feel home insecure. I would say you should write to your state legislators. Shout out Will Jawando. I know he's working really hard, even within Montgomery County, Maryland, and working closely with people like Will Smith Jr. Here, state senator here in the Maryland area, to try to get Governor Larry Hogan to expend, at least in Maryland, a ban on evictions, so that Marylanders who may be home insecure possibly can have somewhere to live or keep a roof over their head. Because mind you, we're towards the tail end of summer, but it's going to get cold before you know it. And that's a scary time to be in a place where they're going to cut your heat off, or they may cut off your water, or you may not have a place to lay your head.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So we have to do something. We have to do something fast because it will get cold, and that's not going to be a good time to be dealing with this. I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts, but I'm going to urge all of you, reach out to your state and local politicians. See what you can do to extend eviction bans for the time being if you know people in your area are suffering with jobs. Also, I would say look up what churches or schools even sometimes that may have food banks that may be offering food. If you're good, don't go there and take food. How about you tell another family, evangelize the good effort of that church. Shout out Kingdom Fellowship. They actually have been handing out bags of food since COVID kicked off. It's a lot of where we redirected a lot of our monies to support that mission. So if you're in a position to give in that way, do it. And if you can go out there and buy groceries, folks, don't take that. Let's try to preserve those limited amount of bags of groceries and meals towards those in our communities that could really benefit from it, all right?
I'm just telling the truth you know our people always free.
Yeah, and actually that kind of goes into the next thing. We'll talk a little about this before we close out.
Y'all know how we do.
Introspection, right? I think it's important because we're really suffering in this country. We see how it's working in our government, but then we see how it works in relationships, right? People never look within to understand some of the answers, right? People will make a quick, I've seen this time and time again, someone will make a nasty comment towards someone because it's like, look at them, they this. And it's like, but look at yourself. You've been through the same thing. How can you begin to judge that person and you have the same issue? Or so often we ask of others to do so much more than what we're willing to do ourselves.
That should be everyone's standard. Never require somebody else to do something that you yourself can't even do. If you require somebody to be in shape, you need to be in shape. If you require somebody I know a lot of women gonna get mad at me for this, but I don't care. If you require a man to make at least 6 figures, you need to be able to pull it.
Yeah, because how can you manage? Because like, and look at it like this, especially on that one with the money thing, right? How if you're it's almost like the whole government situation. Think about how many sisters that married this. Maybe they didn't have much of their own, so they get with this guy that has a lot, or vice versa. Because there's some men in that situation too. They married a sister, they got a bunch of money, they don't make any, and in the event that that person dies, they lose their job. Now you're both just as hurt. You know what I'm saying? Because you were relying on that one person. Or let's say if that person leaves a business to you, if you never try to sharpen or enhance your management skills or your understanding of business, then you'll just run that company into the ground because you haven't built yourself up in such a way to carry on the legacy, right? I just don't understand how you can ask someone to do for you what you're not willing to do for them. Like, don't say cleaning the house is a big deal, but you a slob, right? I hear a lot of men saying, yeah, I need a woman that could cook. But, okay, that's good that your mama did, but what can you do?
Well, and about the mama thing, I want to say one thing about introspection. I find it very interesting that there are these mothers that put so much pressure on their son to just be there, take care of them. You don't love your mama no more. You know the reason why? Because you ain't got no man. You want your son to be the man you ain't got. Like, introspection is looking like, hey, I'm lonely. I desire companionship. And instead of me actually saying it and facing the facts that I need companionship and that's what I desire, I put all this pressure on my son. And every time he got a decent suitor, I ruin the relationship because I want to be number one. Like, no.
Yeah, mother's trying to turn that son into
a relationship
that it had. And I guess Herman has a comment here. He said, yes, Juana Katrina, agree. Let's not walk around with the gavel. Don't be a judge. And that's a fact. But we see it so often.
Well, that, and then I also think that with introspection, it needs to happen all the time, right? You can't be saying, oh, back in 1945, I was the grand dame, and because of that, I have all this acumen, and I know great about business. That was back in 1945. What have you done currently? So I just think with introspection, it needs to be daily. And I also think you need to stop playing the blame game. So if you are a person that's dating and you always find that it yields to a negative result, and then I hear your story, it's like, well, all the men in my life have been negative towards me. The question is, 2 questions. One, why are all the negative men that you dated giving you a negative experience? And then 2, why do you keep dating the same men? So introspection would be, why am I choosing men that are causing me strife, right?
Yep.
And introspection would be trying something different. Introspection is being humble enough to say, I'm not perfect. Introspection is being humble enough to say, in this moment, I'm going to keep my mouth closed and I'm not going to argue with my spouse or tear my spouse down because I realize the greater good of the relationship. Introspection is literally, it's rooted in humility. It's saying,
yeah, you're right.
I know I'm not great. I know I'm not perfect, but I want to get better. And introspection is listening to people tell you about yourself and the things you can do to work on self-improvement. That's what introspection is. And I don't know why it's hard for... Do you ever notice that there are those people where you tell them, it's like they get so offended? Like, well, you stole the ketchup last time, and it's like, but we're not talking about last time. We're talking about current.
Yeah, I think anytime you're always looking outside for your problems, you're never going to find a fix, right? So many people, I mean, in these old adages, but there's so much truth to them, right? If you point your finger at somebody, you got 3 fingers pointing back at yourself, right? And the thing is, I can look at all my relationships and say, oh yeah, this person did that. But then sometimes, at some point, you have to look and say, well, in this situation, what drove them to feel the need to go do this, right? You know, it's kind of like, or at least have a little grace as to why that person operates that way. I'm not trying to say you have to, necessarily accept bad behavior, but sometimes you have to be introspective enough to realize, you know what? I realize why this person acts this way because of the system they come out of. And you don't say that to look down on them, because we all have our hang-ups and our shortcomings, right? I think it's looking at that enough to say, you know what? I won't be mad at this person anymore. I won't go around spreading this story or saying this thing, because you know what? I have enough grace towards their situation that I can at least give them that. You get what I'm saying?
And then can we also talk about mental health? Like,
Yeah.
introspection means realizing that in the Black community, people are dealing with heavy mental health related issues. And introspection is not taking the burden to say, oh, well, they just don't like me, but more so realizing, you know what, this person is dealing with a mental demon, a spirit that I can't conceptualize. So because of that, I'm going to pray for them and cover them, but I'm not going to take it as my own burden.
Like, don't take it personally and make an enemy out of someone when they're basically dealing with the same thing. So we have Mamie out here. She's agreeing with you. Shout out to Lisa Seff. She said, look at yourself at what you can change, and then you might see the change in the other person that you wanted. And that's true. I've seen that in so many relationships, Lisa. You make a good point. They'll say to, like, for instance, I'll call out men. You always hear about men saying they want more sex, they want more lovey time from their spouse. But then sometimes you also hear from those wives of those men that, yeah, well, you know, when are you going to tell me you feel beautiful? That you think that I look beautiful? You didn't pay me no mind all day, and now when the lamp goes out in the bedroom, it's time for me to roll over to you. It's like, what did you do to make me feel good about loving you throughout the day, right? And men, it can be easy. It might be just text your wife, hey, a simple, hey, beautiful, how you doing? Maybe make an effort to do lunch with her if you're in a situation where you can do that. Maybe in the morning you pray with her. But you do those things to fill her emotional love cup throughout the day. And then maybe she might be willing, hey, you know what I'm saying? Shout out Gary Chapman and 5 Love Languages. Maybe she might be willing to give you that physical need you desire later. But I think it's interesting, and it works in so many different facets, right? Sometimes, and I think that was a really great example, Lisa. Sometimes, yeah, there's a change that we need to do that might inspire the change we're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's us looking outside of the answer of pointing at someone. Also, keep in mind, the common denominator of all your failed relationships, arguments, issues is you. You're the person, you are the control in all these issues. Every failed relationship, every bad relationship, every experience, every customer service argument, the one person who was involved in all of those was you. And if you see a common thread of your interactions where you're violent, you're negative, you're not getting enough out of the relationship, but this seems like you're the one having this problem, maybe there's something you're doing to cause these various scope of people to have the same experience with you. You have to start eventually looking at yourself and saying, you know what? Maybe the problem was me.
Yeah, and then the last point I want to make about introspection is that if you're good at something, there's no need for you to say that you're good at it, right? Let's say, for instance, you're a good person that knows how to control their emotions in a very heated argument. Don't tell the other person who's flying off the handle, well, look at me. I'm able to control my emotions. Why can't you?
The only thing you'll do is gaslight the other person. I mean, you're going to get nothing done with that.
Introspection is not being haughty. If you always talking about, well, I did this best and I'm the best here and yada, 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 that comes from a spirit of arrogance. And a spirit of arrogance is not of God, especially if you subscribe yourself to Christianity. So I think introspection requires all facets. It requires being humble. It requires love. It requires grace. It requires you to grow and understand different things that you may be or not familiar with. People who are dealing with bipolar disorder or emotional trauma or trauma in general. So if you are a woman who's never been raped and then your whole mindset is, well, maybe you shouldn't wear suggestive clothes, that will be considered insensitive to someone who has went through rape. Introspection is, man, I haven't been raped, so I can't understand what that feels like. And just because you were dressed a certain way doesn't mean that you should have gotten raped. Introspection is taking yourself out of your own experience and being willing to at least attempt to understand the experience of somebody else.
And that applies, and that really applies in all areas, because sometimes we abuse our fortune and our blessings into looking down on other people. So what? You might have been born to rich parents, so you don't look down on the kid at school that can't afford the shoes you have, because at the end of the day, he's relying on what his parents can afford, and his parents may be doing the best they can with the resources they have and the knowledge they have to provide us a life, right? So introspection will have you think about that. Also, just because your experience is this, once you start comparing, then it's kind of like you become ungrateful of what you have. So I think sometimes it can help a little bit to realize that, you know what, I came into a blessed situation. Maybe not everybody had a 2-parent household. Maybe everybody didn't have 2 parents working. Maybe everybody didn't have a mother and father who were committed to the betterment of myself, right? So then when you start looking down on other people, and obviously they're missing certain ingredients that have led to your blessings, maybe it would help, instead of judging them, maybe you should offer the resources of your exposure and intellect to lift them up along with you, right? Instead of looking down on them. We definitely have to break out that culture. We're about to run out of time, but hopefully this has sparked some conversations in the home, and maybe some thought processes of how you look at life, especially in the social media age. And we'll see a change that can better help those around. Let's go to some shout outs.
Okay.
All right, so once again, RIP to Nitty. She passed away last Sunday. Her memorial service was this past Thursday. Once again, prayers to the Cade and Abdullah families. I know you guys had a lot of support around you guys this week. Happy for that, and we're praying for you, and really just hoping for the best for you guys. And we know you'll pull through this strong. You guys have a strong brother-sisterhood between the 3 of you guys, and I know you're going to be blessed. I just want to let you know personally, I was thinking about you, and I love you guys, and I hope you're okay. Also, I think they finalized everything with John Lewis. Me and my dad actually watched his burial at the memorial service, and of course we're watching like the various soldiers that's doing the proceedings.
What an incredible life.
Oh yeah.
And legacy. So I mean, I know you're going through your shout outs, but when you think about, he was there with Dr. King, like, and then to see that he became a senator, that's an incredible life. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it was. I mean, just, shout out. Also, wanted to shout out, and I know there's some other birthdays going on right now. Actually, shout out Amy Kochek. I know she just had her birthday. That was dope. She was, I saw like a testimonial she had put. She said she hadn't celebrated her birthday in like 5 years. Wow. And she really took time to really celebrate herself. So shout out to someone actually doing the self-care. Even in celebration, that could be self-care. So shout out to you. Also, I want to shout out my best friend, my best man, Jerome Scott. His birthday's on the 3rd.
That's tomorrow, right?
Yeah, no, that's tomorrow. That's tomorrow. Today's the 2nd.
Yes, that's tomorrow.
Yeah, so happy birthday to Jerome. I know there's some other birthdays this week. I'll make sure I shout them out throughout the week. I meant to look them all up, but I mean, those are just the 2 I know off the top of my head. Then also shout out to Clarksville Fat Shack. That business came together by 2 young men that went to Austin Peay. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, I believe they're both Kappas that crossed at Austin Peay, so that's dope. And they opened up the Clarksville Fat Shack. I meant to go by there and check it out. At the time of night that I was going to go, I looked at the menu, I was like, yeah, this is going to break my whole diet, so I can't do it. I mean, it's called Fat Shack for a reason. But, man, if you just want some good, greasy food, if you've been having one of those nights, you need some oil or some grease to suck that up, trust me, they got the menu for it.
And if you were in the comment section, if you were one of our viewers and we didn't know that you were there, shout yourself out, say, hey, Mr. Smith from Ohio here or whatever.
Yeah, we'll shout you out.
Shout you out, okay.
And also I wanted to shout out a local art gallery. This is where I got this shirt from.
Boom.
African brother Olu. He has a art gallery right there in Clarksville. I believe that's Franklin Street. I could be wrong. I got his card and his information. I'm going to post it on Thursday when we do our business shout out. But he had some great art. And I mean, I know what the price of art goes out here, and I feel like he's got a steal over there. And I mean, go support him. I got this shirt. It was $35. Actually, it's a gift from my mom. Shout out Mamie Altar. But I mean, either way, I would have walked out there with something. So I got this shirt. It's actually 2 fists, if you can see it. And there's a handcuff, and then the other one's in chains. And it's really just depicting the struggle of the African American experience right now in America. So shout out to him. And then before we leave, we're going to leave you in a groove. We was kicking it, having a kickback when I was in town. And I was like, you know what, let me bless them some of this backyard. So I'm going to play a little backyard band. The song is Hello. They redid Adele's Hello. And I mean, it's the only version I listen to now. So I had to shout this out. So look, it's the Nitty Gritty Show. It's your boy, J.D. Costa.
It's your girl, Kat.
It's your boy, I messed up, my bad. It's your boy, J.D. Costa.
It's your girl, Kat.